Welcome back, friends, to the Bonus Bone Podcast. It's a special edition. I don't know what we're calling this edition. The Black Edition. The Nikki Blakk Edition, right?
The woo-woo.
The Bonus Black Bone Podcast?
Black Bone does have a different connotation to it.
A little bit.
So, yes, it's Chasta and Baby Huey. No Lamont and Tinelli this week, but we have Nikki Blakk, everybody.
Guess who woke up early?
Who, by the way, if you're not watching on YouTube, you should, because she looks absolutely gorgeous and she's glowing.
You look gorgeous.
Your lighting is like, oh.
What makes me wonder, she's standing, if you're watching on YouTube or listening right now, you're standing where Tinelli usually stands.
Yeah.
But usually he doesn't
look this good?
No. But see, for some reason, Paul always turns the light down like some weird mood.
Oh,
like
I could tell you why. Because he's got a bald head.
He's got the glare.
It's just going to be reflective, whereas I have a black hole where my head is.
So
it just absorbs light.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But Tinelli, every time we start the podcast.
Tinelli also, he puts his face behind the microphone so that nobody sees him either.
Oh, does he?
Yeah, he does. Yeah.
Well,
that's even scarier.
Last episode, he purposely did not turn the webcam around. I think he was waiting to see how long until someone noticed.
And you noticed, so well
I
done on
noticed,
that
and he
one.
started laughing. So
He's such a turd.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we are turdless this week. But we're going to take on some fun topics. So we have Nikki Blakk with us, who is our metal goddess, as I refer to you. Everybody knows that. You've done the metal zone on and off for a very long time.
Gosh. I don't
even know what year you
I started doing a metal show on KSJO while the Bone Metal Zone was happening in 2003.
Wow. So 21 years.
So there was
So Billy Steele started the Metal Zone in like late 2000. And then I started a metal show on KSJO in 2003. And then KSJO went under in 2004. Yeah. And then Billy left the station in 2006.
So there was
that's when I took over the Metal Zone here.
Metal show turf war.
Right, exactly, yeah.
No. Actually, Billy and I talked. We summited.
You did. You summited.
Yeah. There was a metal show summit in the Bay Area because
peace talks.
Yeah, right.
But to be fair, Billy was like a mentor to me when I was an intern here. He was, the night guy, and I was working at KMBR nights, cutting sound and call screening and producing and whatever. And he was always live on the Bone.
Yeah.
So I would basically set a couple of, I'd be like, I'm recording sound tonight. And then I'd set all the games up to record. And then I'd run next door and I'd be like, so tell me how to do this.
Wow.
And he would. And then I would make him put the game call up on the ESPN game call up on the computer in the studio so that if something happened, I would see it pop up and then I'd run back over and I'd cut the highlight.
Oh, that's awesome.
And then I'd put it in so that they could play it on KMBR, and then I'd go running back in and I'd be like, okay, you were saying?
That's super
He
cool.
was awesome for that. When I was an intern doing promos, I would come back. Sometimes we had like a late night event. I'll come back to the station and he would let me just hang out in the studio. And I would just sit there and watch him, pick his brain.
We all need those people.
Billy was really good about paying it forward.
God rest his soul. He passed away. Was that last year or 2 years ago now?
A couple of years.
It's been a full year plus.
Okay. That's what I thought.
I don't think it's been 2 yet because
Sully was just past
I block
a year.
those things out.
Yeah.
But,
I know. Last I saw Billy was at the Radio Hall of Fame when Lamont and Tinelli were inducted, and it was so great to see him there. But that's cool. Like, we all have our mentors that, teach us and guide us and all that stuff. And you've done metal for so long. Everyone very specifically knows that about you. But we happen to know you're way more than one-dimensional. There's a lot more going on to Nikki Blakk than just that. So that's what we thought we'd dive into today. I mean, I'd love to start with the fact that the Ramones are your favorite band, because when I first found that out, I thought that was fascinating. I was like, there's a story there. Like, I don't know that.
So many stories there.
There's so many stories there, but I want to understand, like, the origination of that story. Like, how did the Ramones come into your life and you fell in love?
So this is a fun side note. My mom, when I was like 12, felt like I needed a source of income. And without telling me, she put my name and number up as a babysitting option at the local grocery store. And then she came to me and she was like, some friends that I work with might need a babysitter. And I was thinking that, you could help them out. And I was like, oh, that's weird, but okay. People want a 12-year-old watching their kids. But also I came from a large family. So I was already pretty much the adult.
Yeah.
And so people started calling and I was like, oh, you're my mom's friend. Okay. And one of them turns out to be this woman who lived a couple blocks away and had 4 children. 4 psychotic, hyperactive children.
Age range. What are we talking here?
Infant to 8.
Oof. Oh, my Lord. I hope you got paid well.
No, $2 an hour.
Oh.
$2 an hour. This was like 1985 or 6,
Right.
you know?
Little Rascals, I got $1. I got $1. Hey,
I got $1. Hey.
It was, this was probably like more like 85-ish.
Okay.
Right? So $2 an hour was like way more than I was going to get anywhere else doing nothing.
And you were 12.
Because I was too young to work.
Right, exactly. That's fair.
So I'm at their house, and one night I set their house on fire. Whole other story.
Wait, we need to hear that story. Unpack that story too.
She wanted me to, the kids weren't allowed to go upstairs, right? And they were all supposed to go to bed at a certain time, and she wanted me to fry tortillas for them and make them tacos.
Okay.
And her house was not that clean, you know what I'm saying? So I had never fried tacos before. We always bought them already crispy, you know? And so I'm like, okay, I guess I can figure this out. I'm 12. I'm figuring out how to
What
fry
could go
tacos.
wrong?
Yeah.
With oil? With frying oil? Oh my God.
Yeah, hot oil and tortillas. And I'm like, okay, and I'm like, well, I guess we're having tostadas because I can't figure out how to
Curl it up. Yeah.
which I still have trouble with,
I was
by
gonna
the
say,
way.
I don't
It's
think I've
not
ever
easy.
done that.
Like, who does? But anyway.
Yeah.
One of the kids freaks out and goes upstairs. And I got to get the kids, they're not allowed to be upstairs until it's bedtime. So I got to get them to come down from being upstairs. And, you know, I don't know that you can't leave hot oil on a stove unattended for, I
would
thought
you
it was
know
going to be
that?
a second. I'd run upstairs, I'd grab the kid, and I'd come back down. But the kid locked himself in a room. And I'm just like, grrr, listen, kid. So I'm trying to get the kid out. I finally get the kid out when I hear the fire alarm, and I'm all,
Oh my God.
it's like I'm running downstairs, and, you know, there's like fire coming up out of the pan, and the ceiling was dirty and had grease on it. So the ceiling had caught, and there was like
ceiling had caught fire.
the ceiling had caught. And there was some pots and pans on the stove, and one of the pans had a wooden handle, and the wooden handle had caught.
Oh.
And at least I knew you couldn't put water on a grease fire.
Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
that's good.
And she had like some dish towels, so I grabbed the dish. I kind of blew it out. I was like, and I had some dish towels, and like I just blotted it, and then I was like, well, I got to clean this shit up now.
Oh my God.
So
Nightmare.
I finished frying the tacos, fed the kids, put them to bed, and then washed all the dishes, which was a nightmare. She did not have a dishwasher. I had to do all these dishes by hand
they
that were
sounded
just
pretty
sitting there.
gross.
You know, I mean, imagine like a family of 5.
Yeah, that's a lot.
It's a lot of dishes.
Yeah.
And so I cleaned the place up so well, but you could still see, like, I couldn't fix that burnt patch in the ceiling. I just scrubbed the black off of it as best I could, you know? But when she came home, the place was so much cleaner than when she left. I was like, hey, I accidentally burnt this pan, the little handle. And she was like, oh, yeah, it's fine.
So she was unfazed.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, a single woman in 1985 with 4 children who's just starting to date.
She didn't give a
and is
shit.
so desperate to get out of that house and find a man to be her next baby daddy.
Yep.
She's got a 12-year-old watching her 4 kids, for God's
probably
sake.
could have
you know?
charred the kitchen and she would have been unfazed.
Yeah, she was like,
Yeah.
It really sounds like an 80s movie.
It does. I know.
Felt
right?
like one.
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah. Adventures in
I was gonna
Babysitting
say,
starring
yes.
Nikki Blakk.
but
That's the thumbnail right there.
Yeah.
That's the highlight right there.
the long of the short of that is that she had HBO and
Yeah.
Rock and Roll High School was on.
Okay.
And once I finally got those fucking kids to bed, I was like, HBO? That shit was expensive in
Oh,
1985.
yeah.
You know,
Oh, yeah.
we were like, bing, bing, bing. And I was like, well, who is this? And I was like, this is the coolest band I've ever seen in my life. Because I was already, you know, a girl of the 80s. I was a
Right.
fan of Grease.
Right.
And this was like Grease turned upside down and 10 times better.
Yeah.
And it was like rock and roll, and it was like real, you know, it was like real rebellion as opposed to the fake Grease rebellion, which is ironic now looking back at it, thinking, no, it wasn't.
Yeah.
No, it was like just extra silly, but it was like
But
camp.
at the time, yeah.
It was like the camp version of Grease, which is great.
Yeah.
And so I kind of sought out the Ramones, and in the 80s, that was really hard to do because there was no internet, and you either had to buy records or whatever. But I did find out that the high school station, KVHS, would play the Ramones every once in a while. So I just started listening to KVHS all the time because I couldn't afford to buy records. $2 an hour. Come
Right.
on.
I was going to say your babysitting money didn't add up that fast. Yeah.
Nope. At one point, I borrowed a record from a kid I was babysitting for and then kept it for like 3 years, and their mom had to call and get it back. And I was like, oh, yeah, sorry.
That's hilarious.
I refuse to loan my CDs to people
CDs. I love that.
And I had bad experience in high school.
Who tried
Was
to
it me?
take it?
No. In high school, there was this girl I had a crush on. She happened to like Green Day, so I lent her my Green Day album, and she didn't bring it back for like a long time. I think like a month or two went by, and I was like, "Hey, can I get my CD back?" And he's like, "Oh, okay." She was getting all pissed about it. I was like, "Yeah, give me back my damn CD." Back then, it was like $15, $16.
Yeah, but it was also Green Day.
Yes.
Like, did she know that's your love language? Like,
Yes,
hello.
it was like the first album. I was like, because I tried to told her, hey, there's Green Day music before Dookie.
Yeah, you were trying to educate her.
Yeah, and she brought it back, and the CD case was cracked, and it was all scratched up. I was like, what happened? She apparently got in a fight with her brother, threw the CD at him, and it hit the wall.
Oh, wow.
I was like, from that point on, I was like, no one's getting my Green Day albums ever again or any of my CDs.
And you haven't
Yeah.
since.
No.
Good for you.
First rule of breakups: get your records back.
Oh,
Yeah,
yeah. Oh,
yes.
yeah. In a divorce, so you gotta like split up the vinyl. That's the hardest part. Yeah. Been there, done that. That's another podcast for another day.
Pets?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got the records in the
Vinyl.
divorce.
Yeah, you kept the records? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my ex-husband left so fast I didn't actually have to worry about it. He got in the car and drove his ass home, so it didn't really matter at that point. It's funny that you bring that up, though, because like you do really start at that age. Like you were 12. When you found Green Day, how old were you?
So 94, so I was 10 going on 11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I got my first Aerosmith tape when I was 5. I was younger than Cody.
Wow.
My 5th birthday. It was a single cassette. And I just remember like putting it on and my mind was blown.
Yeah.
Like, I was like you, like my dad was like such a music lover. Music was always around. He didn't play music, but he was such an intentional listener and like always matched moods with songs and stuff like that. That's where I learned that. And so he got me that tape and my mind was blown and that was it. Like they were that for me. I saved up all of my money at Christmas time and I would ask for that and I would buy my own stuff and
Yeah. I was just thinking about that, like Nirvana in 91. I was like 7, going on 8 years old.
Yeah.
Like that was like hearing them on the radio, seeing them. We didn't have cable yet. Big thing. Getting HBO eventually was a big deal.
Oh, hell yeah. We
Huge.
stole off the neighbor's dish.
We had the black box, those black boxes.
Oh, yeah.
Free
That was
pay-per-views and everything.
Yeah, that was a big thing too.
I can talk about it now. With the statue.
Criminal, right?
Is the statues a limitation or
I don't know. It's
Statute of
federal, dude.
limitations.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give that up.
I know.
hypothetically,
Right.
allegedly?
Speaking for a friend.
I'm just saying this for the podcast.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
Wink, wink,
I'm
nudge,
entertaining you guys making up stories.
Right, exactly. Okay, Lamont. Anyway.
But yeah, no, it's but yeah, see Nirvana like at 7, I was like, who is this? What is this? This is different than what my parents were listening to in the car.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Nirvana threw me off my tracks around. I don't remember. It was 91. Whenever was that when Nevermind came out? Remind me. Yeah. So my neighbor, I had like this older, cool girl that lived in my neighborhood. And when I say neighborhood, that's like a really wrong word for that because I lived in the middle of nowhere. But she was like, she lived down the road across the pasture over yonder. And I would go over to her house and like anything she was into, I was like, she's so cool. I want to be like her. Right.
Yeah.
So she had a Ouija board. And I remember she put on Nirvana on the tape, I think it was at the time. And she had this Ouija board out and there was like this fire burning. I mean, I remember this moment. It's so crystal clear in my head. It gives me the goosebumps all over me. And they were playing and Kurt had this like super, I had never heard him before. He had this super ominous feel about him, right? And then she's playing this Ouija board and there's this fire burning in a barrel. And I was like, what the fuck is going on? Like I was so creeped out. And then we like had a moment with the Ouija board where it like got squirrely and I ran over, I picked it up and my cool girl was out the window. I threw it in the little dumpster fire and I was like, that's it, I'm out of here. And I ran away. And I was like scared of Nirvana for a while because all of those like elements were attached to me. And so I had like the spirit world in my head attached to Nirvana. And now when I hear it, it makes me giggle. But it was such a crystal clear moment for me.
Dude, don't loan Chasta your Ouija board.
I do have one at home somewhere.
I'm actually kind of, because of that day, I'm freaked out about
Do
them.
those actually work? Like what?
I 100% believe. Actually, that's not true. I did do a Ouija board later on and had another really scary experience with it with somebody who had just passed. And that's when I was like, I'm writing them off. And I haven't touched since. And that was like 8th grade, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, no, I don't do. I fully believe. But then again, look who you're talking to. Like, I believe in all that stuff, you know? So.
Fun fact, the movie Witchboard with Tawny Katane filmed in Fairfield.
Was it really?
The guy who wrote it takes place in Fairfield. Is from Fairfield, so it takes place there.
Yeah.
They filmed some of it in Rockville Cemetery, and the rest of it was in L.A., but...
Oh, really? Ooh, I love that. Yeah. Horror film, scary, spooky
By the time
stuff.
1991 rolled around, I was a little bit older.
Yeah.
Than y'all.
We don't have to get into numbers.
And I was just sitting at a Chevy's, like, drinking margaritas and eating chips, and I remember vividly going, you know, I'm not mad at Nirvana. Like, I like the album. I just liked it better when the Ramones did it. And I'll just tell you right now, they are no Motley Crue. I remember being like all jaded, just being like, it's not like they're Motley Crue or anything, you know, because Motley Crue had the number one album at the time. It was like they were like the biggest metal band in the world at the moment, you know, because Metallica hadn't dropped the Black Album yet, or they were just about to. I forget which.
Yeah.
But it was like, I mean, clearly I was wrong.
At least we can admit when we're wrong.
Yeah. But I'll never, when you said that, I have that vivid memory in Nirvana, and I was like, that's my Nirvana memory.
Right. At Chevy's.
I remember sitting at Chevy's, just shoveling chips in my face and like stealing my boyfriend's margarita because I wasn't 21 at the time and he had to order them.
Funny.
You know, and just being like, they're no Motley Crue.
Oopsie. Well, you know what? That does beg the question, though. So going back to the metal thing, you're all about metal. We know that. But like outside of that genre, what are bands that you love? Like surprise the Bonehead, surprise us, because we might not know. Like bands that you love that are not in that wheelhouse.
Okay.
Because we're all very dimensional. We all have different genres that we love.
My dad played folk guitar.
Oh, okay.
And when I was in preschool, he would come to my preschool and like we would sing songs around my dad. So
that is so
that was
cute.
like the coolest thing ever when you're 3.5, 4 years old.
That is so cute. Were they originals or he would play other like?
No, it was like John Denver.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
Kenny Rogers.
That John Denver guy's full of shit, man. One of my favorite lines in any movie ever. Okay, go ahead. Sorry, I got derailed.
Yeah, no worries. So, you know, I was super into like Kingston Trio as a kid.
Okay.
Kenny Rogers, John Denver.
Gotta know when to fold them.
Yeah. Think I don't know that song? Dude. Front and back.
I was raised to Kenny and Dolly. Kenny and Dolly were everything in it. Yeah, that's a biggie.
Yeah, but my dad lived in Napa.
That is a little bit odd. There's some country folk in Napa,
out there in that area. Yeah,
his family though comes from like Alabama, Mississippi,
That's what
Louisiana.
I thought. Okay, so that makes a little bit more sense.
But he was a military brat, so they got kind of like a pretty well-rounded France, Germany, Texas, Mississippi kind of education.
So he was probably very cultured and eclectic in his musical taste too.
Yeah, no, he went from like folk to like country. Really,
that was pretty much it.
Yeah, and then a little bit of like, you know, because in the 70s, the pop scene in the 70s was very country influenced too.
Yeah,
so he kind of like oh my God, when I was a kid, KMBR still played music. So we basically just listened to KMBR all the time.
That's so wild.
We only had an AM radio and the VW bus.
Yeah.
And so we would listen to KMBR's music when it had music. Yeah. And then when they were playing Dragnet, we listened to Dragnet. And then we listened to Giants games when they had Giants games.
That's amazing.
Dragnet.
Yeah, that takes you back, doesn't it?
I 100% was just raised on radio.
That's so cool.
So once I got my own radio, you know, it was KRQR and rock radio, whatever was like top 40 at the time, because that's all I knew.
Right.
I think for a lot of us, that's our exposure. I mean, you and I have talked as far as like being 90s kids.
Yeah.
I feel like it was the radio, MTV, and what you can find at your record store.
Yeah.
Like I love just walking through the record store, looking at album covers. The warehouse.
I didn't even have MTV.
But the warehouse in Alameda, they had like the listening station.
Oh, that was the best
I loved it. You scan the barcode in the back of the CD and just listen to the album and figure out if you want to buy it or not.
Yeah, the problem is where I lived, I had to talk somebody, usually my mom, into driving me 40 minutes away to go to the local record store because we didn't have one, obviously, where I was. We had a Walmart and not a Supercenter, so there wasn't much there either. Yeah, it's interesting because I was raised on a lot of old country. Like, you know, I started, Elvis was my first true love.
Okay.
And that's like if I go back to my furthest memory, it was definitely Elvis. And then Johnny Cash, like he's religion in our family for sure. But any of that old school country, like I know inside and out, backwards, you know. And my grandpa thought I was going to be a singer. And so he would drive me around in his old Cadillac and play Patsy Cline on repeat and have me sing for hours. He just loved to hear me sing as a little girl. And he would just drive me around in his caddy and I'd sing Patsy Cline, which to this day is the only thing I've ever recorded in a studio, in a microphone, for real, on a CD, is me covering Patsy Cline.
Really?
To be fair, my granny, Mac, and granddad were all about the old country station in Napa, which played like all the Merle Haggard.
Oh, yeah.
And the quintessentially old country, like this, nothing recorded after like 1977.
Wow.
Country.
Yeah. That's all the stuff I was raised on. There's no quicker way to get me nostalgic than to put something like that on. Like I'll get teary-eyed.
So how did you get into like 90s hip hop then?
I know, that is the weirdest part about me.
Because that's something I think people I know about you, but
most people don't
know.
Yeah, I was huge into 90s like hip hop and rap. Like I was obsessed with Tupac. I wanted to marry Tupac. I was
Death Row.
Oh yeah, Death Row. I mean, but I loved them all. I was big into like Tupac, Dre, Biggie, Snoop. I mean, like, it always goes back to a boy, right? Always goes back to a boy. So in high school, there was this guy who was like, bad boy dude. And he was a stoner and he would listen to all that. And so I was like, okay, I can get into that. And so I started, and then I just naturally loved it. Like Bone Thugs and Harmony, you get me drunk enough, I will fucking karaoke the shit out of some Bone Thugs and Harmony.
I think like every kid in my middle school knew that verse,
right?
The Crossroads. But then like even Coolio, because like for me, was it 5th or 6th grade, like Gangsta's Paradise came out.
God,
the Coolio was big. Yeah.
Coolio too.
I was in the record store when that stuff came out, and it was a nightmare. We had a wall of cassette singles that we had to stock, and whenever like a hit popped like that, they would just ship us a ridiculous amount of these cassette singles.
Yeah.
And at one point I was the receiving clerk, and it was just like,
nightmare. I will still throw Jay off. Like something will come up on a playlist on Alexa, and I'll just bust out into like full blown every single word of Tupac, and he's like, "Who are you? This is so weird."
It just hit in the back of your brain.
But
it just
stays
ignites.
there.
Yeah.
For me, it happened because breakdancing was a thing.
Oh yeah,
You know?
sure.
I mean, in the mid 80s, breakdancing was everywhere, and it didn't matter what you were into or what you weren't into.
When I was a freshman or sophomore, I felt like there was a breakdance revival. There was a group of guys that were like the breakdance crew.
Yeah.
And they would bust out in the hallways like during lunchtime.
Wow, that's like a Lifetime movie.
But
Yeah.
we were like all into like UTFO and Roxanne Shanti and the old stuff.
I don't think breakdancing made it to Sulphur, Oklahoma.
But you know what was funny is when I was interviewing Ernie C, talk about unexpected,
Yeah,
right?
no kidding.
Because Ernie C from Body Count is also Ernie C from Ice-T.
That's amazing. Yeah.
And we sat down. Were you there when we sat down together at Mayhem or something like that? Or Ozfest? I think it was a Mayhem.
I probably was there. I remember following you around with the camera a lot. Like I still remember going on Machine Head's tour bus, like one of the early Mayhems. That was awesome. Like that was, I think, my first time on a tour bus.
Really?
And I was like, whoa.
Was that when you were an intern?
Yeah, I think it was like 06. Like Mayhem was like
in the way back.
Yeah.
So Ernie's like, well, you're too young to remember when I was in Ice-T. And I was like, oh no, I remember Breaking. I saw Breaking in the theater before Electric Boogaloo, and I was like, I know who you are. And he was like, shut up. I was like, oh, yeah. No, I could talk. So we did. We hung out, and now we're like friends on Instagram.
That's awesome.
Like even today, I'll get like a little, Ernie liked your post. I'm like, aw,
that's
Ernie
so
C,
cool.
What's up, brother? What you doing?
That's funny.
I love him. They're rad because it's so quintessential of my generation growing up at a time when like rap and rock were starting to converge, but also becoming like the biggest things ever.
Yeah.
And for some reason, there's like a lot of people that have a hard time reconciling that. And then there's a lot of people now who are like, I don't get it. What was the big deal? Why can't you like both of those? But back then it was very like sharks and jets.
Oh yeah, I mean, when Aerosmith
you were a rocker or a rapper, and there was no in between, and there was all this fights and
yeah. When Aerosmith and Run DMC did their thing, they both equally thought it would ruin their careers.
Anthrax and Public Enemy.
That's another one. Yeah, exactly. Like that was a big deal. Now it seems so silly to even think about it, but it was a big deal at the time.
Well, then we were talking on a past episode of Bone Breakers, like Limp Bizkit, Korn.
Oh yeah,
how big they were on MTV and TRL. They were definitely influenced by those two genres crossing over like that.
No question.
Yeah.
It created its own genre.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You know, you blew my mind. You were on an episode of Soundwaves TV one time, and you like went toe to toe with Morris Knight on old school R&B.
Oh.
Like I was like, yeah, because your mom.
Yeah,
right?
my mom. Yeah. So my mom's vinyl collection. That's like one memory as a kid. So my grandpa. Her dad had this huge vinyl turntable. It was like almost like a chest, like a table that you would open up.
That's how we had that too.
Yeah,
and I mean, but the
that
front
was common, bro.
Yeah. The front of it was the speaker.
Record players were furniture in the 70s.
They were. And that was awesome. I want one now.
It was a table, but yeah, the front was like the speaker. With that like
the
that,
wicker stuff on the front.
That material, the fabric, whatever on the front. But yeah, she would open it up. And she would have a rum and coke and just go to the turntable. And when her cousin would come over, and so they would start playing music on the turntable. But yeah, she had all this stuff. She had stuff from the Beatles, the Stones, to Earth, Wind and Fire, to War, like a lot of the 70s R&B stuff. So like, she grew up loving R&B and like, she's been in the news. Like I grew up listening to Rennell on the radio a lot because that's what my mom loved listening to. So my car rides to school was listening to Rennell and her station.
That's so cool.
So I grew up on like old school R&B.
Yeah. I know. I didn't know that about you until that day when we were talking about it. And I was like, oh damn, Morris literally was like, what?
So no, Morris, I'm like, dude, like I'm a huge fan.
Baby who?
Because my mom listened to him as well.
Right.
So it was the same station. So
That's so cool.
So
that was a moment in time.
So to tell Morris just like how much he meant to me as far as my family and his entertainment value as a jock did. So that was really important.
And he's part of your influence with your family. Isn't
cool? So all the stuff he was dropping that one day, I was like, I know all that stuff.
And you learned it from him in some ways.
That's exactly. Cool. I mean, I love Prince and all that. So yeah.
That's mind blowing. Yeah. I love it. We could talk about this all day, but I just looked at the clock and I realized you have an interview coming up pretty soon. Yeah. So we will go for now, but this has been awesome. Please come back and do this with us. Nikki doesn't
live here.
I know, but we do it a little early, and I know you're not like,
you should like mix up like a bonus. You
can always zoom me.
A bonus bone.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can zoom in when you're on the treadmill. Nikki Blakk on the treadmill, and she can give us her flavor of whatever topic we're talking about.
If I'm on the treadmill when it happens, I'm on the treadmill when it happens.
I like this idea. I like it a lot. All right, you guys, leave your comments down below. This has been really fun. We'll do it again. We love you for being here. We'll talk to you next week. Thanks so much.
Cheers.
Bye.